It is beyond a doubt that all knowledge begins with experience. Immanuel Kant. My friends, the great philosopher Immanuel Kant is exactly right. All knowledge begins with experience. And for us, we take what we learn here day after day, week after week, month after month, into our experience so that we can become experienced and successful traders. All we ask is 10 to 15 minutes each and every day. You can do this. Now let's talk about what we see going on first with the S&P 500, then the NASDAQ 100, 20-year bonds, gold, and Bitcoin. Everything is down for the day but Bitcoin. Now, what do we see on the S&P? Remember, this is the S&P 500, 500 big international companies. We see this prior up move that tried to take off after we captured a nice little down move here. And of course, we had this long 12% up move. And then what, a 1.62% down move. And then it just fizzled as things popped up for a 2-week period. We did not take the bite on that, didn't trust it, didn't feel right, didn't look right, didn't have the kind of volume that we like. And then what happened? It died on the vine. And look at this, super high. Well, not super high. That's pretty super high if we go all the way back to March the 13th week beginning then. Or we go back to here, June the 13th of 2022. That's really high volume. But we do see decent above average volume here with what? We've got a spinning top, almost a doji here. Now, I would love for it to be peaking or troughing. That means, a super high or a super low. It's not doing that, but it is telling us something is going on, because typically, what do you expect with a really big candle? You expect really big volume. When you start seeing a candle like this that almost is non-existent, you have wicks on the top and bottom, but again, very, very little movement of the candle itself and high volume. It's showing you an anomaly. The market is trying to find price there, lots of indecision, and it did not. And then it's followed by what? A down candle. Now we'll see if this is going to lead us into a strong down move. Don't know that that's going to happen, but we are keyed up and ready for it if we continue to see that move throughout the week. Now, as we look at our 2-day chart, we can see that the Friday, Monday, and this is the Tuesday, and we'll finish drawing on Wednesday. We do have 3 days of down movement now. We can count here 1, 2, 3 days of down movement on the half day, as popped up on Thursday and then on Friday started rotating down. Opened the week, again, completely through the weekly trend line heading down. So we're paying attention to that. That's important to see, particularly when you couple it with that prior volume in the week before. Not as much volume, average volume last week on the NASDAQ 100. Again, somewhat similar. You can see almost a doji there just sitting right on the weekly trend line. And of course, as this week starts, red down candle pulled away, popped off the trend line. We can see now just one 2-day candle below, unlike the S&P, where of course we're into the second candle below. And of course we have 2.5 days of down movement. So we are paying close attention as to what's going on with the NASDAQ 100. Again, waiting to see as the week progresses if at the end of the week we might pull the trigger on a down move. And for those of you not familiar, what are you talking about? Why would anybody buy something that's going down? We wouldn't buy the NASDAQ 100. We wouldn't buy the S&P 500 in our practice trades. We would do what? Well, for the S&P 500, we would look at something like, there's plenty of others, but the ProShares short of the S&P 500. Look at that. It's going up as the S&P 500 is going down. It's called an inverse fund. On the NASDAQ 100, here's a simple short, PSQ, Papa Sierra, Quebec. And what do you see there? Same kind of thing. It's an inverse fund. Now, there's all sorts of things to learn about it. We've got a great training. In fact, I'll put it at the end of today's video. I've put it out numerous times Inverse funds, how to make money when markets crash. You might like listening to that. It'll be at the end of today's video on the screen. Let's look at what's going on with 20-year bonds. Down for the day, 0.74%. We see them continuing to descend. We see things descending here on the weekly trend line. And again, went down nicely to begin with. We captured a good down move of 2.54%, then popped up on that week beginning the 28th, and now looks like it's, continuing in its retreat down 0.74%, below the weekly trend line on both the half day and the 2-day. What about gold? Gold a little down for the day, 0.09%. Don't know what gold's doing. It's just sort of sliding sideways. See where it popped up on the half day, then down, trying to pop up again, down, trying to pop up again. It's violated now going into the second week of this prior half-ass, I would call it, attempt to move up. Don't know what gold's doing. I'm not touching it until it gives us some good signal. What about Bitcoin? Up for the day, 1.22%. Now, after several weeks of down moves, maybe Bitcoin is taking off again. Do you see where it's starting from? About where it started from last time, about the same area. So we'll see as this week progresses what it's doing, going into the third candle on the 2-day after having blown through the weekly trend line. And you can see on the half day as it has pushed through there also. Like I said, XBTF, which is the Bitcoin ETF, that again trades like a stock or an ETF, a lot more volatile. But again, we're here to practice trade these kinds of things. We're not a stock calling service. We're an education firm. I want you to practice trade with us. Get used to how these things work. If you think you're starting to get good and you know what you're doing, well, I would encourage you to, again, continue to practice trade. You can always take a few bucks, say $50, $100. You could buy a couple of shares of this and see how you can do. The last thing you want to do is start gambling. And you start gambling when you don't know what you're doing, you're just learning, and you start putting real money into the market, more than just a few bucks to see how well you might be able to do with a share or two of something inexpensive, or a fractional share of something more expensive, like a $100 fractional share of something like the S&P 500 SPY. Those kinds of things, we don't discourage after you've been practice trading for a while. But again, you start putting real money in these things, you don't know what you're doing. There are people on Wall Street that know exactly what they're doing, and they will be happy to strip you of every dollar you hoped to ever earn. Sort of like a card shark in Vegas, because when you start gambling in the market, I can assure you there are bigger sharks that will eat you. God bless, my friends. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.